Morning Cornerstone, and welcome to my very first Friday encouragement. The question that we're asking today is, what are you convinced of? In 2 Timothy, Paul writes to Timothy. Paul's near his death, and he writes to give him encouragement and guidance, and he focuses on things like sound doctrine and service. So in 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 14, Paul says, "But as for you, continue in what you have learned and have become convinced of, because you know those from whom you've learned it, and how from infancy you have known the Holy Scriptures, which are able to make you wise for salvation through faith in Jesus Christ." So we see that the thing that they were convinced of were the things that were taught to them from the Holy Scriptures. But the passage begins by saying, "But as for you, continue in what you have learned and have become convinced of." Now, the reason Paul says what you have learned and become convinced of is because not everything you learn do you become convinced of. So he taught them the scriptures, and not only did they learn them, but they became convinced of them. The reason we need to be convinced of the scriptures is because whatever you're convinced of drives your thoughts, your feelings, and also your actions. Imagine you have a close friend and you're convinced that they've done something negatively towards you, but they haven't. Then you're going to interact with that person based on a lie because you're convinced of it. So Paul says you don't just learn the scriptures, you become convinced of it. And the second reason we have to be convinced of it, because you cannot convince someone else of that which you are not convinced of yourself. So over the next 3 weeks, we're going to be looking at some things that Christians should be convinced of from the scriptures. And we're also going to be looking at why. Cornerstone, what are you convinced of?